Okay, hello, my name is Ethan Speer. I'm a second year medical student. And this summer, I had the opportunity to work on a project with Dr. Zolniers titled, You're Using What? A Professor's Guide to Understanding Outside Anatomy Resources. So our overall question and aim was that given the large number of third-party medical resources available to students, we wanted to understand what anatomy resources students were using to study and why. And then from these resources, I created a database to help faculty better understand um, everything that these resources have to offer and help students find future resources to fit their needs better. So we sent out a survey to the class of 2028 during the mod block once they had completed all of their anatomy-based blocks. The survey consisted of 3 questions. What external resource did you use most over the course of anatomy? What features or why did you find this resource helpful? And then were there any other additional resources you found helpful that you believe students would benefit from? So from our survey, we had a total of 70 students respond. The amount of resources provided for primary and secondary varied student to student. And then the explanations for why they found them useful varied in detail as well. So a thematic analysis on why they were selected was not performed. Here's a general overall list of the primary and secondary resources that students reported. You'll see some common ones like Anatomy Bootcamp and Anki, all the way to one that I had never heard of before called Physiopedia. And then I'll also point out Carter Brocht was a first-year medical student who for each anatomy practical basically created a master PowerPoint with individual pictures for each structure on our structure list that was shared to our entire class that a lot of students used to study as well. So here's our survey results for all primary resources. We had a total of 81 student responses and then a total of 14 primary resources provided. And then here's a table just showing the breakdown of the top 3 primary resources. You can see Anatomy Bootcamp was very widely popular at 48% reported use. And then Complete Anatomy at 12%, Anki at 11%. All 3 of these resources covered all anatomy topics from our first year. And then you can also see in the far column the costs associated with each resource. And here's our survey results for secondary resources. We had a total of 66 student responses and 22 secondary resources provided. And then I'd also like to point out on this one, the miscellaneous column was a group of responses from students that were not specific resources, but rather kind of explaining their mental approach to how they studied anatomy, whether it was how often they went into lab or studied outside of lab, or even students mentioned visualizing anatomical structures when doing OMM and things of that nature. Again, here's a table of the top 3 secondary resources, Michigan Blue Link being the most used secondary, and then Anatomy Bootcamp and Anki again. All 3 of these resources also covered all anatomy topics from first year, and again, the costs associated with each. Common reasons students reported using these resources. Anatomy Bootcamp is a very all-encompassing resource that has a multitude of practice questions. It takes a lot of large quantities of content and breaks it down into manageable short video explanations. It also has lots of connections to other material like histology, embryology, and things like that. Complete Anatomy was very popular among students in the lab while dissecting cadavers due to its 3D imaging capabilities, and then you were also able to isolate specific structures on your iPad, such as a specific nerve or blood vessel, muscle, etc. Anki is great for its simplicity, and it's customizable to each individual user, and also allows for spaced repetition. And then Michigan Blue Link provides a large quantity of cadaveric images with tags. So we took this information from the survey, placed it into a database called Airtable, and then we also included additional info for faculty, such as these, if these resources had a faculty version, was there content that could be placed into lectures or presentations, and was there connection to any other materials as well. We included how the content was vetted from each resource to ensure its validity. And then Google and other multi-resource based resources were not included. And so I will give you a quick little look at what the database looks like. Didn't anticipate that one. Perfect. So here is each of the resources that you can see. And then as you scroll across, you can see the content that goes with each resource, from quiz features, how content is vetted, connections to other materials, their main modes of delivery, cost. And then the nice thing with this table is the ability to filter. So if I wanted to look for a resource that is videos only, or videos are the main form, I can go there and it'll automatically filter and show me all resources that have a video form of delivery, while also still being able to see any other content that goes with them. Future directions, I had a idea to basically, now that we have a idea of what resources students are using to study, compare their practical and lecture exam scores to look for trends in what resources are producing the highest exam scores. We've also discussed examining different resources for their quality, accuracy, and efficiency. And then we will be providing this database link to Dr. Schmidtke for possible distribution to the launch teams. I'd like to thank Dr. Zolniers for the opportunity to work with her this summer, the SSRF program for putting this together, and the KCU administration for the opportunity. Questions?
I was curious, for Anki, was that words, so word recall? I mean, was there a difference between the various types of information that people used Anki for? That's the first question that popped into my mind, but the one that actually interests me more is whether or not any of those resources are actually engaging students in drawing the structure. I've always maintained that if I could draw it, I knew it.
I'd say the majority of those resources don't involve a drawing component, or more just visual. As far as the Anki goes, there's a multitude of Anki decks at our disposal with that have cadaveric images built into them, and so a card pops up with an image and it has a tag. State it, click your remote to reveal the answer, and it's just an easy way to really plow through a whole bunch of different practice questions in a short time frame.
How do you plan to maintain FERPA when doing that post the future directions? Do you have a protocol for that?
No, that was purely a idea for the future, and would definitely be an extensive IRB approval should we do that. Dr. Hopper?
My question is, you have about 70, I believe, survey participants
Mhm.
who have 35 or 30 resources that they gave as primary. So to me, it's a little perplexing because it seems very individualist. There's as many resources as there are students each for them.
Yes.
So I'm wondering, as the university has invested also in adopting resource for our students,
Mhm.
how these might compare to university provided resource. What's missing? What is in need of students that aren't being direct?
I think from, like you said, there was a very large multitude of responses for resources. I think the one big obvious one, given that 48% of the students use it, is Anatomy Bootcamp. I think it's a great resource, just because it connects to so much other material besides just anatomy. I believe that's why so many students use it and are willing to spend the $250 a year on the subscription for it. Yeah. Okay.